Thanks everyone for your answers, and back to you, Janice.
Thanks very much, Lawrence. That's helpful. So on to our second presentation then with Stephen Clegg. He's leading that. Stephen leads on WEEE and end-of-life vehicles and is providing an update on the recently published consultation on waste electricals and the ongoing developments on disposable vapes. Next slide, please, Catherine.
Thanks, Janice, and thanks everyone for logging on today. I'm Stephen, the policy lead on waste electrical and electronic equipment, or WEEE as it's more commonly known. Before I take you through the consultation proposals in detail, I want to quickly set the scene for you, especially for those of you who are new to WEEE and these webinars, just to point out to you some of the complexities around WEEE products, because WEEE is different. Next slide, please, Catherine. WEEE covers such a wide variety of products, from large domestic appliances like your tumble dryers and dishwashers through to the small appliances like your phones and toys, and covers everything in between. So WEEE is different, and it's the fastest growing waste stream in the world. WEEE is often a high value item, an occasional purchase if you like. So as a consumer, we automatically treat this product at the end of its life differently to, say, an empty 2-litre milk carton, which we recycle automatically without a second thought. Just think about your smartphone as an example. Did you throw your old phone away when you purchased a new one? Or did you donate it? Or more likely, do you still have it in the dreaded drawer? Now also think about the multi-material waste. Your new phone arrived in plastic wrap packaging, inside a cardboard box presumably, and inside that was the plastic handset containing a lithium-ion battery, precious metals, and of course it came with a new charging cable and plug. So did you then have 2 phones, 2 charging cables and 2 plugs, and on it grows. The point I'm trying to make here is with electricals, we throw them away only occasionally. We don't dump waste electrical items every day. These electrical items have a residency time in our homes of years, not days. We do expect them to last. And often there is no direct link between what we buy and what we discard. So I refer again to the empty 2-litre milk carton. You dump one, you buy one. That's not always the case with electricals. So WEEE is different, and it is a complicated multi-material waste to recycle. But the good news is it's all recyclable, including the plugs, the cables, and the batteries. So with that in mind, let's turn our attention towards the consultation, call for evidence, and the proposed reforms. Next slide, please, Catherine. Okay, so this is a UK-wide consultation, and it is now open. It launched on the 20th of December and it closes on the 7th of March. The key purpose of the consultation, the call for evidence, is to seek your views and gather evidence on proposals to reform the current producer responsibility system. The intention going forward is to ensure producers of electrical equipment finance the full net cost of collection and the proper treatment of their equipment that ends up as waste. Now, this could result in a significant transfer of costs from the public purse for waste management back onto the producer. So we want your views on how we can make reuse and recycling a wee easier by expanding the existing collections infrastructure, make it more convenient for you and I to deal with our WEEE properly, minimising the amount of electricity that actually become waste in the first place. So let's look at the key proposals, or some of the key proposals anyway. Next slide, please, Catherine. Okay, we'll start with collections and measures. Across the UK, we're collecting almost 500,000 tonnes of household waste electricals every year, which is not insignificant, but we feel so much more can be achieved. Research has shown that a staggering 155,000 tonnes of WEEE is still being dumped every year in our residual black bin waste. What research has also shown, though, is that consumers will reuse and recycle when the right infrastructure and communications are in place. So what we need is an expansion of the options that's open to the consumers. And with the generational move towards more lightweight and more sustainable electronic products in mind, we feel the need to include some proposals on alternative metrics to measure the success of the new WEEE system, other than simply using tonnage all the time. So we consider that whatever measures of success are actually adopted for this new reform scheme, there should be additional metrics that we can use to measure the performance of the system on a nation-by-nation basis. We want to see data and reporting at a more local level, just so we have a better picture of how the system is performing, and so we can target appropriate interventions in areas where perhaps there's maybe low levels of performance. The next one there was a free of charge collection. So in short, what we're proposing here is providing householders with free of charge collections of both small and bulky WEEE financed by the producers. It's very easy to get electrical items into your home. Consider your last online, dare I say it, Amazon purchase. You can have goods delivered to your home, or if it suits you better, you can pick it up from a collection point. It's no problem. It's easy, isn't it? Just think, how would that system work in reverse when our electrical products are no longer wanted or they've become waste? We must have a robust collection infrastructure for all electrical items, big and small, as we believe these reforms are a crucial step towards a circular economy and they'll contribute towards meeting our climate action commitments. More consistent collections of separately collected WEEE for reuse and recycling will reduce the need to extract critical raw materials for new products and help reduce our carbon emissions. It is estimated that almost a quarter of electronic products that people throw away are actually suitable for reuse. That's a terrible waste. Next one, enhanced options for consumers. Well, here we propose to strengthen the obligations on retailers and provide clearer, simpler in-store take-back options for consumers. All stores selling vapes will be required to provide in-store take-back for customers buying vapes, irrespective of their turnover of vape sales. Retailers with electrical item sales of over 100,000 a year must provide a take-back service. We are aware that some retailers and internet sellers sometimes offer to take your old appliance away, but for a supplementary charge. So we aim to remove that charge away from the consumer, as this acts as a disincentive to some consumers, and that causes the unwanted item not to be properly recycled. Next slide, please, Catherine. The government proposes that online marketplaces take on the financial obligations for the collection and treatment of their overseas sellers, and this will be consistent with the current packaging reforms, if any of you are familiar with that. We further propose that internet sellers provide a free of charge collection upon delivery service of large domestic appliances such as washing machines, dishwashers, fridges, freezers, and for internet sellers with a turnover of 100,000 of electrical sales to offer take-back of unwanted equipment. Now, the intention here is basically to provide parity with the one-for-one take-back obligation that I mentioned previously that currently applies to physical retailers. Just keeps it fair. Thinking about the administration body, the key role of the WEEE scheme administrator would be to manage, on behalf of the producers, the provision of household collection services across the UK. So we're very interested in your views on whether a WEEE scheme administrator should undertake a number of key functions, such as the necessary contractual arrangements for establishing and operating the household collections, and providing centrally managed communication and PR activities aimed at householders and businesses. 3 different organisations are currently approved to operate the compliance fee, the take-back scheme and the balancing system. So the administrative burden of approving and operating each of these systems could be reduced if they were brought under a single administrator. That simplification would mean that businesses seeking to use these would in future deal with a single organisation rather than 3. That's a proposal and we'd welcome your views and comments on that. I want to touch briefly on vapes now. WEEE is currently classified into 14 categories by product type. What we're proposing is to establish a new standalone category 15 for vapes. This is to ensure the cost of collection and the cost of treatment of vapes is correctly and fairly borne by vape producers alone and not by other producers in the category. But I will talk a bit more about vapes shortly. Catherine, next slide, please. Okay, when you go on to access the consultation link, you will note we've also published a call for evidence document alongside the consultation. It's worth noting that unlike the proposals in the consultation document, which can be rolled out in the short term, the call for evidence document actually contains proposals where additional evidence is still needed before they can be further developed and implemented. There's a lack of data and a lack of knowledge on these areas, so that means that not all the WEEE reforms can be made at the same time. It's anticipated that the policy proposals on the call for evidence will be phased in over a longer time frame. This will be an interesting area, however, and we'll be discussing this in more detail in our future webinars and at our stakeholder events, so we would encourage you all to participate if you feel you can contribute in any way. So let's turn our attention now back to vapes a second. Please, Catherine, thanks. Wanted to give you a quick update on vapes, as this issue has really come to the fore over the past year and it's captured everyone's attention. All type of vapes, whether they be refillable, rechargeable or disposable, they're still electrical items, so they therefore fall within scope of our WEEE regulations. That being said, our consultation proposals here on vapes complement those set out in the smoke-free generation consultation that was launched by the Department of Health back in October. That consultation proposes action that the government wants to take to tackle the alarming rise in children vaping, and even goes further by exploring ways not only to introduce restrictions on flavours and packaging, but perhaps more interestingly, also examines the very real potential of all 4 nations banning these disposable vapes altogether. So we're keeping a very close eye on developments there. That health consultation closed in early December, and there was almost 30,000 responses to it. So this will take some time, but they are currently being analysed ahead of a much anticipated government response. So if you're a vape retailer or just an interested party, we're worth keeping an eye on developments there. Next slide, Catherine. Okay, before I leave vapes, I just want to point out that while these disposable vapes do remain on our market here, they need to be managed. So I've inserted a useful NIEA regulator link and an OPSS video that provides step-by-step guidance on vape disposal for you to revisit in your own time. It's a very well-made video and a worthwhile watch. I know people had been asking about how to track down guidance. Next slide, please, Catherine. Okay, I want to conclude my talk today just with a bit of a good news story. Material Focus is an independent not-for-profit organisation that is funded by fees paid by electrical producers if they don't meet the annual recycling targets set by the government. And under their electrical recycling fund, organisations can apply to Material Focus for funding. And I'm delighted to tell you that Derry City and Strabane District Council have recently been successful with that. For their project, the team wanted to focus more on the reuse element of these items rather than the recycling only, and to focus on more rural areas of the city and district. So, for example, people who might live quite a distance away from a recycling centre, for example. Derry and Strabane have been working alongside NIRN, Northern Ireland Repair Network, and also recently with a local community interest enterprise known as Cafe Repair Foyle. They're a group of volunteers who run a series of pop-up repair cafes throughout the year. Some of you might be aware of that. They're aiming to run a series of further repair cafe events throughout the year where people will be able to bring their unwanted or broken electrical items and either leave them for repair or to kindly donate them. And there is the possibility that if the project is well received and if the donations are sufficient, there may be an option to provide startup packs for those in need of more small or useful electrical, such as kettles and toasters, for example. A really brilliant idea. So we pass our congratulations on to Derry City and Strabane District Council on that award. Really well done, and we'd encourage you all to keep an eye on their advertising for these events and get involved. Support them if you can. The reason we encourage you to support these type of ventures is because the success of those mean that Material Focus are committed to funding further projects, and it's worth noting that in spring, Material Focus will actually be opening a new round of funding. So if you haven't already, we would encourage you to sign up to the Material Focus newsletters and social media. Who knows, maybe even make a funding application of your own this year. In closing, our email address will be provided. I think it appears on the final slide today. So if you have any follow-up queries on anything you've heard, please get in touch with me. Thanks for listening, and I'll hand back to Janice now.
Next slide, Catherine. So thanks, Stephen, for that concise outline of the main proposals and the WEEE consultation, and also for the update and debates. Again, lots for folk to digest there. So we're about to go into our next Q&A session for WEEE. So if you'd like to ask a question on WEEE, please do submit that via the Q&A panel on the right hand side of your screen by directing your question to all panelists. But before we go to Q&A, again, it'd be helpful if you could answer this slide question. So I appreciate that you do need time to digest the consultation, obviously, but grateful for any first thoughts that you have on specific concerns for Northern Ireland. And Lawrence, whenever you're ready, if you could just provide a summary of the responses there. I see people are still typing.
Janice, so we've got a number of respondents so far, but the main thing coming through there seems to be cost. But as well as that, I can see a variety of other things such as burden to councils, funding, goods more expensive. This is great. I just say we'll take this feedback away and consider how best to use these results. Thanks to everyone who's responded, and back to you, Janice.
That's super. Thanks, Lawrence. Absolutely, we need to take this one. As I can see people are still typing there, so we'll give them a wee second before we move to the next slide. Very useful indeed. Thanks very much, everyone. Next slide, please, Catherine. Okay, so this time we have Stephen and Aideen back joining me for Q&A. Please again do direct any questions that you have to all panelists through the Q&A function on WebEx. Just before then we start with any questions that we receive, again, I'll start off. There was quite a lot there on cost in the Slido that we just had. So could I ask for the new collections that were mentioned in the presentation? Is the initial thinking that councils will be expected to provide this service? Aideen, if you wouldn't mind having a go at that one.
Yes, happy to take that on, Janice. Yeah, so at this stage, it's just actually a consultation, so the proposals, nothing has been decided on them yet. So, however, we'll probably think that as producers are likely to be funding, sorry, not likely, will be funding the curbside collection of WEEE, they would ultimately make the decision on how to arrange the collections, and they may decide to partner with councils, but ultimately that would be up to them to take that decision. So it won't be something that councils have to do here. So also it's not actually a decision that's going to be taken by government.
Super. Thanks very much, Aideen. I see someone there doesn't have access to Slido, so they've entered something on the previous question in the chat, so we'll pick that up. No problem. Thank you for submitting that. And
Janice, sorry, Janice, cutting across you there. Just in terms of an NI context, someone has referenced there. I know I give some stats there. This is a UK-wide consultation, but we is a devolved matter, so perhaps I could give some Northern Ireland context to who was looking there. 4,000 tonnes of small mixed WEEE was dumped in Northern Ireland in a year, so still quite a significant amount, with 10,000 tonnes treated at our authorised treatment facilities. So just to give some context on some of the stats there. Okay.
thank you. There's one question in. There's a couple now in. So there's one in vapes collection is one thing, recycling is another. And I'm not aware of any cost-effective recycling processes. If someone could maybe come in there on the recycling infrastructure in Northern Ireland and further afield.
Yeah, well, I did reference the recent, there has been a lot of questions on this, the OPSS guidance video that's been issued on each of the although we don't have a regulator on the call here today, unfortunately, Janice, but there is a updated guidance that has been issued on that shortly, just recently there.
Okay, thanks very much, Stephen.
It's a difficult process, we understand that.
Yeah. And there's a longest question in there on large WEEE retailers. I wonder if someone could take a look at that one too for me.
Yes, happy to take that. So going forward, can we ensure larger WEEE recyclers will be encouraged to work with local reuse initiatives? We absolutely take that comment on board, and that will be something that will be considered as we move through the consultation.
I could second that, Janice. In the call for evidence, alongside the consultation, there is actually a proposal to provide charity shops and networks of that with a free collection and disposal service. So we do want your feedback on that, on your thoughts on that, please. So that ties in very well with that question that's just been asked, please. We don't want to appear non-committal when it comes to waste electricals, but these are proposals. These are proposals at this stage.
Thank you very much. So there's nothing further in from anyone. So again, we can move on from this short Q&A session. Next slide, please, Catherine. So next